Now, before we go rush out and have our drink, we are going to close out this evening with some remarks from someone who is also an incredibly dear friend, both of mine and, of course, of Harry's. There are passionate public intellectuals, and there are distinguished academics with a large popular following. There are charismatic television performers, and then there is Sir Simon Schama, who is all of them. Somehow, he has combined all of these three roles for almost half a century, and he's instructed and delighted us all 2 generations in 2 countries. He's got a brilliant new book coming out, Foreign Bodies, about pandemics and viruses, which you must not miss. But I just want to welcome him now to close out this incredible day, which has, I think, left us all vibrating with passion for journalism.
Well, Harry, today was the day when truth fought back. Today was the day when truth decided not to be yet post. I'm a historian, so I kind of get to decide what actually counts, as a day of historical substance. I don't want to hear anyone telling me that what we've been listening to and witnessing today is anything about soft power. The power of free journalism has all the softness of dynamite of liberation and freedom. And it's more important than ever. There's not a day goes by when I don't miss Harry, that mighty warrior for truth and decency wrapped up in a compact package of steel trap intelligence, iron integrity, and boundless energy. How could we all not miss him? Grievously, ardently, living as we do in incredibly perilous times, balanced on a razor edge between fact and fantasy, authoritarian brutality and brave resistance. So I want to, of course, thank Reuters, Durham University, and most of all, only Tina could have actually put together a day so inspiring and so exhilarating and moving and eloquent in so many ways. There are days in which actually history manages almost, to turn a bit. I think we'll all remember today for a very long time till next year's repeat inspiration. It reminds me, it's up there with days in January 1898 when people opened their newspaper in Paris and read Émile Zola's J'accuse, or in January 1977 when Charter 77 was published, or indeed in 1972 when Watergate and our 2 great heroes made history turn in the right way. So it's interesting, we have been listening to the possibility that we're living in a post-truth world, or a world where truthiness, Stephen Colbert's wonderful neologism, might reign, or at least entertains, or at any rate gets the ratings, or Tucker-wise steams people up even when in the rancid interior of their opportunism they believe not a word, they rant. Harry never went for post-truth fatalism, and for what it's worth, as you can guess, neither do I. In Harry, there was a kind of gritty innocence in his rock-hard belief that the truth was there, all right, provided you put in the elbow grease and the hours and the fortitude to go after it. All of you, everybody I've heard and admired so much today, takes that as the foundation of social decency. And all of you here, all of those we've heard from, honorary Evansites, exemplify this heroic, extraordinarily brave determination to pursue the truth, however long it takes and whatever cost. Our civilization, what's left of it, will live or die to the exact degree by which you all win the battle for the marketplace of attention and make the arrogantly powerful lose their sleep, lose their sense of invulnerability. Now, Harry didn't need Hannah Arendt or even George Orwell to tell him that the survival of free democracy hinges on the receptiveness to truth and a contempt for public lies. What Harry gave us his whole life long was an unswerving, eloquently articulated faith that in the end, truth will out, that hard evidence has the strength to disarm paranoia, public spiritedness has a moral power to prevail over the politics of the ego trip, that cool reason can be argued to and even adopted by those in power. And to those convictions, Harry added, as so many of you do, righteous fury, the intolerance of intolerance. And that was inseparable from the humanity of Harry Evans and from so many of you. And do not tell me that we all journalists, I'm one of those too, we constitute some sort of remote elite. Sir Harold Evans was one of nature's democrats, the real thing in press and publishing. When I was lucky enough in 1968, courtesy of a friend who had a job at the Sunday Times, to get a part-time job in the warren of offices at Gray's Inn Road, everybody working there looked up to him as a working-class hero, son of a railway cleaner and driver who'd risen through the ranks the proper hard way in the world of hot metal print. The ethical drive, the unapologetic passion for the investigative crusade that posh boys, and it was at that time mostly boys or pub-soaked veterans, rolled their eyes at, was always the turbocharged drive of Harry's sense of vocation. Grappling with cervical cancer in towns blooded by pollution, the fobbing off of thalidomide victims, taking sides, the sides of the powerless, was the point of it, and it made him, and there's no doubt about this, the greatest of all British citizen editors. Harry's job, as he saw it, was to rattle indifference into concern, but not by some sort of high-minded bloviation, but through the inescapable presentation of evidence. Harry's battles were fought with fistfuls of facts, but he never let those facts coagulate into a dense mass of impenetrable micro-detail. It was, as it always was for great editors and great journalists like Carl and Bob, accumulated truth shaped into dramatic conversionary story. It was and is the difference between popular and populist, between writing which shaped deep research into something that could light up public attention or indignation. In the RAF and the Air Force, his nose often stuck in books, not least Thucydides' History of the Peloponnesian War, that original primer of policy debate and unsparing self-criticism. Harry was known as Educated Evans. And whether as reporter, editor, or non-fiction writer, Harry never weakened in his conviction that profound knowledge and gripping journalism were not mutually exclusive, but mutually sustaining. He himself, as all of those who knew him know, was always learning, always curious, always excited by some new discovery, exhilarated by the possibilities of how knowledge could change the world, even as he was dismayed by the rise of sovereign stupidity or the cynical cultivation of malleable ignorance. All this made Harry both throwback and prophet, the enemy of the meretricious headline. He was, above all things, an incorrigible enthusiast, the sender of late night or early morning emails with news of discoveries that had amazed him and he knew you had to hear about. The zeal for spreading that kind of news was infectious, even missionary, a refusal to ever close the doors of possibility. For who knew what ingenuity, possibly even AI, lay just around the corner to save us from our appetite for obtuse self-destruction. You put all this together and the word that comes to mind is inimitable. And that's right, of course. as he was indeed our Harry, journalist, editor, publisher, one of a kind. But if he were here, and of course in some way he is, he would say, what's the good of being one-off when what we need right now is much, much more of the right stuff? And one of the most moving things about today is the riches of the right stuff that we know is around and living and alive at well. Harry would say, multiply me and what I stood for. And another reason why I wish he really was here, because he would have seen from today that not just his spirit, but his practice is alive and bloody-minded for the good cause. But you all here are mighty generals in your several ways. And so you know what we now need is a great rank and file, a whole regiment of Harrys, uncompromising the passion for truth, a thorn in the side of corporate convenience, citizen writers whose moral and intellectual battery charge never fades or dies. We can't have Harry back, but we can make sure that what he gave us, colored by his burning love of humanity and his inextinguishable hope in prospects of a just democracy, embodied in words that blow away the idiot wind, lives on for all our sakes.
Oh my God. Unbelievable. It is so incredible. Simon. I mean, Simon is, we've all got liftoff. We just want to rush and catch the phrases. We're trying to, pocket them, bottle them. This man is unbelievable. I cannot thank you enough, my darling Simon. You are one of the world's most phenomenal people I've ever met.